What's going on, guys? It's Derek Manasco with Mpact Real Estate, and
Jeremy Delamarter with Caliber Home Loans, Delemarter team.
we're going to be covering, should you buy a home now or should you wait? There's a lot of things going on in the marketplace right now that's crazy. With the shortage of inventory across the country, especially here where we live, it's making people wonder, is this the right time or should I wait? Should I pay something off? Is this the right time? So we're hoping to answer all those questions. Jeremy's a great resource in the lending industry for us and our clients and all local clients. So we'll make sure to put his information in the description and links below. Feel free to, after this video, if you have any questions, make sure that you send them his way. He is a guru when it comes to this, a pretty much lending wizard. So whatever he can do to help, I know he will. But
I'm trying to grow a wizard beard as we speak, so
it's looking good, man.
Yeah,
I like the two-tone.
Yeah,
that's looking good, man. I'm starting to get little peppers in mine too. But I tell you what, let's dive in. We're going to talk about some of the risks of waiting versus some of the rewards, and it's pretty heavy to one side.
Pretty heavy to one side.
So what are some of the risks that you see with waiting to buy a home for any of those people who are on the fence?
So I'll talk about it in terms of the financing part of it, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of, and they bleed together, and you're going to talk about the real estate end, but as far as the financing thing goes, like Derek said, there's obviously a huge demand for homes right now and not enough homes available. So there's just this huge imbalance of people wanting to buy versus homes for sale. So that's making prices go up quickly. That's what he's talking about. On the other hand, what we have now in the financing side of things is a fairly new phenomenon. The price thing has been going on for a long time. The financing thing has taken a turn recently, very recently, within the last month or two, where we were at the very lowest interest rates we'd ever seen in mortgages ever in the history of the world, right? So nobody had ever gotten a lower interest rate than somebody that did a loan, probably 3 or 4 months ago. And so now, due to a lot of, larger picture things happening with stimulus money and there's a lot of worry about inflation in the market. And when inflation goes up, then interest rates go up. It's just the way it works. So we've seen a really, really strong uptick in mortgage interest rates just in the last 6 weeks or so. For example, somebody might have gotten at the very lowest, they might have gotten, say, 2.75%, right? It's at least probably 0.5% higher than that now, which, that maybe seemed like not that big of a deal, but when you're talking about a 30-year loan and hundreds of thousands of dollars, it can make a pretty significant difference in your budget and, what you're able to qualify for. So that's one of the things that's kind of scary, and it's tough to get people to wrap their brains around that because it's not something that everybody else thinks about all the time.
Right.
So,
yeah.
But I mean, I've got some numbers we can share here in a minute, but maybe you talk about the appreciation and the inventory thing a little bit.
Yeah. So right now, with historic level lows of inventory, as Jeremy had mentioned earlier, at least here where we are at, we're experiencing year over year increases in appreciation of 16.7%. Using WVMLS data, our listing data from where we're at here locally. And
It's got to be the highest it's ever been that I've seen, right?
It's extremely high,
yeah.
And I think before it starts taking a dip with interest rates rising, I think we'll probably see that number higher before that happens, because it's going to take a while for that to turn the fold. But if you think about that, 16.7% on a $300,000 house, just for example, let's actually use that data.
Well, while you're looking that up, can I ask you a softball question?
Softball me up.
Well, so if rates are going, or if prices are appreciating so rapidly right now, then why don't I just wait for the next crash and buy on the downswing?
Man,
I mean, it can't go like that forever, right?
Yeah, and we've been talking about the bubble bursting since 2008, the last one. And yes, there will always be decreases in the market depending on what that means, right? Like depending on what that means, a shift in the market. But the reason, at least from the real estate perspective, is you have. This was an interesting stat. More first-time home buyers actually in 2020 used conventional loans than FHA. That was the first time in history that's happened. So people are coming to the table with stronger financials than historically they have, at least that we've seen.
Well,
in the
they've
last
had
few
to,
decades.
right? Because with sellers could be so picky that buyers are having to step it up and really make their strongest possible offer.
Right.
And
Right. So let's take that appreciation and why this is important for you all to understand that it's a great time to still buy, because when you historically look at the interest rates, yes, they are still low per history and per national average.
Yep.
With that being said, if you have the ability to, your finances are right, and Jeremy's going to touch on some of these points in a second, but let's kind of talk about the money side of this for a second. Jeremy's going to break this down in a second with a graph, but real quick before he does so, let's use these numbers. Last year, the average median sold price this same month last year was $318,000. Just due to appreciation alone, with the inventory levels and what the market's doing, that is now $370,000. That's a difference of $52,000 in the span of a year. So, for those of you that are renting out there, you're spending your money and giving that to a landlord or a property owner. In some places, in excess of $1,800 a month. And if you look at just the appreciation in 1 year's time, is it worth it to you to give up potentially $16,000, $17,000, $18,000 in a year, or have equity of $50-something thousand in your home in the year? That's the real conversation we should be having. And markets can absolutely turn, but what does that buying power do for you as far as overall wealth, long-term growth, getting into your next dream home? Jeremy's going to talk about the finances, but I think that's a good place for us to start.
Basically, I have this cost of waiting tool that I can use. And so I'm looking at a house and this is really more like a house 2 months ago based on pricing and interest rates and stuff when I first did this. So we'll say a $350,000 house, which is kind of probably an average entry point, I would say, around here. Maybe, like I said, getting out of that range, but that's a fair number to use as kind of a moderate priced home, as strange as that might sound. It's a lot of money, but so a $350,000 house, if you put down 10% on that house, right? So you would be financing $315,000, and as of say a month ago or 2 months ago, your interest rate was 3%, for example. This is just a broad example. We're just talking general numbers, but the differences here are not really that theoretical. These are pretty practical differences. Yeah. So if your rate was 3% and the house was $350,000, you would be making a payment, principal and interest, only about $1,328 a month. Okay. So you got to add taxes and insurance on top of that, and that's going to vary depending on where you're at. But you figure your closing costs are around $7,500, and your total cash to close with your 10% down, your closing cost $42,500. Now, 6 months down the road, it would not be unusual if that interest rate was up to 4%. So we're kind of halfway there already, which is why I'm saying this was maybe a couple months ago. We're now sort of in the low 3.25 to 3.5 range at this point already, and that's gone up that quickly. So that same house, and I've got appreciation numbers here that are based on, I can't adjust this or else I would have, because they're so low that they're not even really feasible, but they're good to scare you with because this is super conservative, right? And I do want to scare you a little bit, right? There's a hint about what the conclusion here is. Yeah. But that same house, like we're looking at an appreciation over 6 months of 3.63% based on this tool's built-in thing, which is kind of conservative. So again, that $350,000 house is now $362,000. The rate's 4%. And the payment, just principal and interest, is $1,559. That's $230 more than it would have been 6 months before. You take that out a year, not a year from the first one, right? And so now instead of 3%, you're at 4.5%. That house is appreciated even more. Again, conservative number, $368,000. What was $350? Now you heard him say that over the last year we went from $317 to $370, right? So that's crazy. But anyway, we'll just stick with it with the conservative numbers, right? So then it goes up to $1,681 a month. So now you're up another $130 a month over the 6 month that you already went up $230, right? So that's $390. Am I doing my math right there?
Right.
And then if you wait 2 years, and I hear this a lot, I'm going to wait a couple of years.
Wait a couple of years.
Yeah, we want to wait a couple of years. We want to pay off some debts.
Yeah.
You know, we want to get our credit score, fixed and all that. Well, congratulations. Again, this is doing a 9.5% appreciation over 2 years, which is silly. But even at that house is $383,000 now. The rate now is 4.875%, hypothetically. I will tell you that 2.5 years ago, that's almost exactly where rates were at. We were kind of coming off of pretty low interest rates and going back to semi-normal historical type rates. And we were, the best interest rate you could get was pretty close to 5%, a little under. So let's say in 2 years, it's back to that, 4.875. It's not that hard to imagine. And now your monthly principal and interest is $1,825 a month. So just to recap, in 2 years, the exact same house, your payment's going to be $600 a month more than it was if you bought it now. Okay? On top of that, you're going to have more cash down, right? Because the price goes up, and if you're just trying to put down 10% or whatever, 10% of a higher number is a higher number. I'm sorry to tell you that. So the cost of waiting, you've got that difference in your monthly payment, which is huge. Again, a $6,000 a year difference between now and 2 years from now in terms of just your monthly payment. But you got to also remember that you're paying a higher price to play with that house that could have been money in your pocket, equity in your pocket, and that's what Derek's talking about with building wealth over time. So not only are you going to pay more to get in the game later, but you're going to miss out on all that appreciation that happened in the meantime.
Right.
So this tool shows me that if you wait 2 years with, again, my very, very conservative numbers that it's using here, I keep repeating that, but I want to make that clear because this is a really conservative estimate. So basically, by losing out on 2 years of appreciation in the property and also losing out on 2 years of payments going towards your principal, you're now $46,000 behind where you would have been if you bought that same house today versus 2 years from now.
So let's take all of that data Jeremy just gave you and let's break this down because that's so valuable and there's so many points to that I want to hit on. So for those of you, let's talk about those of you who are in a steady income job right now. Your income's not going to fluctuate. You could afford a home today. It might be a little tight, but you could do it and you could still manage and be comfortable. This would be a great scenario for you to really heed and take this advice because if your income isn't going to change in the next year, 2 years, but you're considering waiting, as Jeremy just pointed out, that's really not going to favor you, and you're not going to be able to purchase a home that you want today in 2 years. That's the reality of it, is you're going to end up having to sacrifice what you want then, as to where today you could probably get in what you want today. And then in that 2 year time, if you wanted to upgrade, you're going to avoid capital tax gains, which is a considerable amount of tax gains that are deducted off of your home purchase, like the difference of equity. So like what you bought your home at versus what you sold your home for in less than 2 years, that difference is what you're going to pay taxes on. And it's going to be a considerable amount if you're there less than 2 years. But even so, let's take the example that you're in it for a year and you wanted to do something in a year. Even with the capital tax gains versus the rate of appreciation, you're more than doubling, if not tripling, the amount of equity, even after paying those, that you would have paid a landlord. So worst case scenario, you're still almost double to triple better off financially to have more of a down payment to put on something else if you wanted to. And so I would say for those of you that are on the fence, not going to make any more income in the next 2 years, or you have a steady income job, now's a great time for you. For those of you that are looking to maybe have advances in your job, another great benefit of that, because some of you are out here looking for fixer-uppers because the prices are so high. There's challenges with that as well. But if you know in a year's time, 2 years' time, the appreciation is going to be that much more, what could that do for you to refinance or use a HELOC and get that property taken care of? Yeah. That's life-changing. I mean, because then you're going to build value in your property and not have to use a whole lot of money, if any, out of your pocket to do so, because you're just using what your home gained in equity to do it with. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, there's just part of the problem here is folks that are on the fence about whether or not they should do anything right now or they should wait is they don't even know what they don't know.
Yeah.
And that's what's kind of sad for me because, there's a lot of planning that you can do and a lot of maybe solutions that we can do creatively to help you buy a house sooner than you think.
Right.
What are the reasons people give you that they're just not ready to buy?
Man, a lot of it is they're scared that it's going to take forever because they hear the war stories of the market. So they hear that we're in a shortage of inventory. It's too hard to get a home. I don't have enough of a down payment. But the reality of that is there's still ways to get you in a home even in those conditions. We do it every day. So if you want to go back to one of our first original videos, hiring the right agent and hiring your right lender basically solves 99% of the problem. So if you have a 100-step process, your first two most important steps: hire your agent, hire your lender.
Well, and to that point, not all lenders and not all agents are created equal. And I think a lot of people kind of think, they just put together a contract for me and I sign it, whatever. There's a lot more that goes into this, and there's a huge difference between a good lender and a good realtor and a mediocre realtor and a mediocre lender, and God forbid a bad realtor or a bad lender, because there's a lot of little nuances here and strategies and sort of creative things that you can do that not everybody is going to think of. It's not everybody has the same amount of experience or the same amount of just know-how on how to do this stuff. But like when you were talking about, people not wanting to look now because it's too hard, because, it's too hard to find a house and all this stuff. It's like, that's not going to get any better. Like, all that's going to happen is you wait and it's still going to be really hard, but now you've lost however long you waited, right?
And the tens of thousands of dollars.
$. And when I'd asked you before the softball question about why don't I just wait a couple years? So there's another easy answer to that one, and that's that as far as the home price thing, right? Like, a lot of us have been adults for most of the time since the last housing crash in 2007, 2008, or some of you are, even younger than me. I'm kind of old, but you maybe were growing up during that. You were a teenager during that. Yeah. Actually, probably a lot of you were teenagers during that time period, or even in grade school, and maybe your family had a hard time, or lost a home, and so you're kind of traumatized by that. This is not that. Like where we're at right now, we have serious issues, with our housing, situation in this country, but it's not the same issues as before.
Can I speak to that for a second?
Yeah, go right ahead.
So with that, because I have that question a lot is, the next housing crash that's coming, you hear about the looming foreclosures and all the things that are happening. Well, the reality is this: 64 NAR, the National Association of Realtors, came out and said that 64% of all Americans are actually sitting on 50% equity in their homes or greater. So unlike the last time in 2008 where everybody was overextended and over-leveraged, this time it's just not simply true. We're seeing too many homeowners that have so much equity in their homes, even if a crash happened, they're still fine. Right. Because they're sitting on 50% or greater equity position in their properties. And so, so to that degree alone, and there's other factors, but that's the really big one. That's the key that this country will continue going in this way for the foreseeable future. So,
and I think the next crash is not going to look like what people think when they think of crash.
Yeah.
The next crash will be more like instead of a crash, like it's going to be more like it finally kind of hits a peak and maybe it slows down a little bit and it stops appreciating quite so quickly. And quite frankly, rising interest rates could be one of the major things that causes that to happen. But you don't want to wait till interest rates go up to that point, because then you're getting behind on that. And that's just, again, over the course of 30 years on a mortgage. I mean, I told you what the difference was in your payment, right? $500, over 2 years, which is $6,000 a year. Okay, multiply $6,000 a year times 30 years, and then that'll make you a little bit sick.
Yeah, and I would even go so far to even say you can basically that 2-year time frame do it in half that. Like that's the reality of our market. I gave
with
you
the numbers that I have being so conservative, right? Yeah. So really, based on what he's got in his data, which is probably a little bit more reliable than the kind of the basic stuff that I have in my tool. Right. That 2-year time frame that I was trying to scare you with is really more like a 1-year time frame.
Yeah,
probably,
I mean, and depending on your price range, he's right. You could be spending more $200 to $300 to $400 on the low end to $1,000 to $1,000 to $1,500 on the high end per month. that you're going to be in difference there if you wait. So this is why we're doing this, because we genuinely care for all of you guys. We want you to have the information readily available so that you can make the best decision for you and your families. And without having this information, this discussion, one of the biggest things that we love about what we do is we love teaching, we love helping, we love educating, because without you having this information, you're not going to make a great decision. You might, instead of using logistics using logical thoughts and emotions, you're going to act out of emotions. And this should help you at least have a better peace of mind, a better understanding of why it's important that you do go ahead and act now if you have the ability to, even if you're like right there. And here's the biggest part. This is the most important thing. If you can take any golden nugget away from what we say today, it's this. Make sure before you do any financial strategizing over the next year after you watch this video, reach out to a lender. Reach out to a trusted source who can talk you through the process, look at the financials, brainstorm with you, and tell you where you're sitting. Because until you have what his knowledge base is, you're not going to have a good roadmap. Because that's the other thing that I was hoping you were talking about too. Like, talk about it can almost be a bad thing for people to just go ahead and just preemptively do that, right?
Yeah. So I'm glad you brought that up, because I wanted to get back to that. So the things that I hear most about why I'm not ready yet is number one, I want to save up more money for a down payment, or number two, I need to work on my credit. So those are both under normal circumstances. That's the funny thing, is a lot of the things that people think are based on like sensible advice,
right?
Historically speaking, right? And save up 20% down and make sure you've got a 700 credit score and all this stuff. That's normally really good advice, but right now that advice will hurt you more than it'll help you. Yeah. And so the credit thing, obviously there is a minimum, credit requirement that you're going to have to meet, but you don't know. And especially if you're using some of these tools where you check your own credit, like Credit Karma and whatnot, I tell people those are great for actually like just kind of tracking what's on your credit report and knowing like if something's reporting wrong or something that should be reporting right isn't on there. But the scores that they provide you are not accurate. I'll tell you that right now. Credit scoring is a really complicated thing. The actual credit score that we use, you have to pay for. And so because those are free websites, they don't give you the real one. They have what we call the real one's called a FICO score, or we call a FACO score. It's kind of a little joke. But they're trying to do the same thing, and they're using the same credit bureau data, but they don't have access to that proprietary formula. So the real credit score, and there's not even one real credit score, there's like 15 real credit scores. So that's the other thing. But you don't want to go about trying to fix your credit without having some guidance, because there are a lot of things about credit scoring that are really counterintuitive. And there's things that you can do that you think are going to help you that will actually hurt you or set you back. There may be things that you think are hurting you that aren't hurting you as bad as you think they are.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just so much misunderstanding. And so for you to go, just go charging blindly into trying to solve those problems for yourself is a terrible idea. And you know what? It's okay to talk to me if you're not in a position where you're going to be ready to buy yet, because I'm happy to do the long-term planning, right? So there's a couple things I can do. I can, if your score is close but not quite where we want it to be, there's little tweaks I have software that can tell me, you do X, Y, and Z and get your score up by this much, and we can do that in a matter of days sometimes. There are other things that are going to take a little longer to fix, but I have other resources that I can direct you to help get your score going the right way over the long run also.
Yeah.
Going back to the saving more money thing, you can't outsave the rate of appreciation right now. I mean, unless you are fabulously well, unless you have so much, there is no way for you to outsave the rate of appreciation right now. Okay, so if prices go up 17% or whatever it was you said over the next year, let's do the math. Let's just do easy math, right? Let's say it only goes up 10%, right? And we're talking about a $350,000 house. That means that a house that's $350,000 a year, $350,000 purchase price now, 1 year from today, if it only goes up 10%, it only sounds crazy, but if it goes up 10%, it's $385,000. Okay, so if you were going to put down 10% on that house, but you're like, you know what, I really want to put down 20% and not have mortgage insurance, which might cost you, $70 a month or something. It depends on your credit and all that, but people get really scared of mortgage insurance. In this case, you shouldn't worry about it. If you're going to put 10% down, or you could afford to put down 10% on a $350,000 house right now, but you really want to get to 20%, you're going to have to save $35,000 more, right?
Yeah.
Except that, wait a second, now the purchase price on that house is $385,000. So now you've got thousands and thousands of dollars more. So if you think you can double your $35,000 down payment, that you have available to you now in the next year based on savings, well, you need to tack on another $10,000 or whatever that comes out to be.
Right.
So you can't outsave it. Not only are you losing the money that you're losing that appreciation. So you're going backwards in two ways basically. Yep. So there's not a good what are the good reasons to wait, Derek? We didn't get back to that. So now that we've said all this, what's a good reason to wait?
Here's a good reason to wait. There aren't any.
Yeah.
There really isn't. I mean, historically speaking, even in today's crazy market, there's never been a better investment than real estate. Never has been. I mean, appreciation has always been a thing in our nation's history. So, not a better investment to make. If you're going to invest in your future, if you have plans, if you have a family that you're wanting to build, if you have a job you're wanting to relocate for and you're trying to like plant roots somewhere, or even if you're just trying to upgrade your home, or maybe you're at the kind of going into the golden years of life and you're wanting to downgrade your home and now's the right time for you. No matter what the situation is, even if you're a beginning investor or seasoned investor, waiting is never a good idea. Especially not right now with the rates of appreciation. My concern for all of you is if you decide to wait, you're going to miss the appreciation wagon, because right now it's not been any greater. And if you miss it now, think about what that's going to do for your family and the goals and the dreams that you have in just a few years to down the road. When if you got in today, you could absolutely obtain those in a reasonable amount of time, do it with less financial stress.
Because it probably will level off eventually, right? Like it's not going to appreciate like this forever.
Right.
Over the long run, it will go up.
Yeah.
But the worst thing you could do is wait it out, buy at the peak 2 years from now, and then it's starting to level out. Yeah. And then, you kind of missed out on those 2 years of appreciation like we were talking about. So. And
in a lot of sectors of the market, I'll touch on this one more time, but then we're done on that regard. The crash that happened in 2008, if you look at in 2 years, 2.5 years time, the home values are already above where they went into the crash at. So if that's a thought in your mind of a reason of concern to wait, if you're going to be in it for 2 years and the crash happens today, you're going to be in a great spot. I mean, theoretically speaking here, which would you want to talk in hypotheticals and make decisions based off of fear? Do you want to have a little bit of faith for like what's in front of you and you can just jump forward into it today? That's really the question you got to answer. So we're hoping to provide you with all the details and the rule and like all the resources we can to help you make that decision. If you need anything from Jeremy or myself, you have anything to add?
I would just say that you may have to reach a little bit outside of your comfort zone. I mean, I think a lot of people, we were talking about this before we started filming, a lot of people, they come up, they say they're going to wait and they have, reasons, so to speak, but really it's just a matter of they don't really even know. They're a little afraid. It's just the fear of the unknown, and it's a scary thing. It's a big financial commitment, but that doesn't change. It's going to be a big thing, a big financial commitment. It's going to be a little bit scary your first time, no matter what. Yeah. But you just got to make the leap. And if you talk to somebody, you talk to Derek, you talk to me, I promise you, I'm going to tell you if I think that you can't do it and it's not a good idea for you, or I'm not going to try and get you to, buy more. Derek's not going to get you to try to buy more house than you can afford. I mean, that stuff just doesn't happen. But I do want to at least have a shot at like getting in front of you and getting you with a game plan, so that whether it's buying a house in a month or buying a house in a year, at least you've got a good jump start.
Good jump start.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys, a lot for tuning in. Please like the video, subscribe, share it with anybody that you think this could be beneficial for. Everybody. As this message needs to get out. We're literally trying so hard to get this out. Jeremy's doing some things, I'm doing some things, and that's why we wanted to do this collaboration. Yeah. It's for you guys. We literally do this for you. So any questions you have, reach out to myself, reach out to Jeremy. Like he said, before you have any financial, like I'm going to do this, just reach out to him, okay? Or reach out to your local lender, but give him a call. I promise he'll answer the phone, okay? Yeah. But we appreciate you guys a ton. Thanks for watching the video. Like it, subscribe it, and you guys have an impactful day. Thank you.
Thank you.